All right, VA fam. This has been a very long time coming, but I am excited to introduce y'all to my co-host for this day, my guests, a little combination of both. I have the brilliant, the gorgeous, the talented, the intelligent, Chantel George, everybody. Oh, that's so weird. Alex, did you think that was about
I
awkward?
Yeah, it was really building up and I felt like it was coming toward me, but that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. It's in our contract as siblings that I'm not allowed
hmm
to
Yeah.
compliment you first. I was gonna go like in the most exquisite natural hair to really like stick the knife in, but I didn't.
Hey.
Curls is popping. But I have Chantel George, y'all. She is the founder of Sistas in Sales. And I also have my brother, Alex Woodruff, who is a award-winning legendary filmmaker, but by day is an AI sales director for a company called Fiddler. And I wanted to have y'all on the show because this theme has come up a lot for me. And I know Chantel, when I met you at Afrotech, it's something that we bonded over was the idea of women of color, people of color in sales as a career path and what that can look like. So separately, Alex, you and I had talked about the dearth of women and especially women of color in sales and how even you know, as you're working your way up, you're conscious of that. You're conscious of the lack of diversity. And then Chantel, you founding Sistas in Sales, I mean, that was a direct answer to what you perceive to be like, where are we at? Where are we? And this career path that can be really lucrative. Like I've seen how great it's been for like my brother. And I want to start by just asking, I guess both of you, I'll start with you, Chantel. At the time that we're in now, how do you feel like, what do you think are the biggest barriers for women of color breaking into sales as a career path today?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And I'm so happy that we met last year.
Oh, thanks. Me too.
Love that. And I feel like we're going to have a great conversation today. I think that, sorry to have a hot take on this already, but my organization has been around for 8 years and it'll be 8 years this fall. And so in our ethos, our philosophy is that there are less and less barriers to enter sales. Not to say just because we are around, but I do believe that from a company standpoint, there have been so many companies that are rolling out the red carpet or really trying to meet candidates where they're at, showing up and sponsoring our events, showing up at Afrotech, showing up, and partnering with all kinds of conferences and organizations. Sometimes I think that there's a bit of misconception in our community, and we're working really hard to change perception on both sides. So sales is not what you may think it is. And we're saying that to our community. And then to our organization, we're saying that there's some really incredible talent that you need to find. But all Black History Month and all Women's Month, we have been putting on events every week with companies.
Y'all been busy. I've been getting the emails.
Busy.
I've been forwarding them too. I'm like, go.
Yes. So there has been so much appetite to hire women from our network. And so sometimes it's just understanding what it means to excel in sales, getting out of your own way, really finding a mentor, finding a community, because the jobs are hot. A lot of the media says that the market is in trouble, and I can understand that that does exist somewhere. But I don't know if you feel the same way, Alex. But the need for commercial roles right now feels like an all-time high, and that's coming from where we're sitting, and the conversations that we're having. So I just think we need to get out there and get that work.
Oh, well, thank you for correcting my perception. I want to hear more about Alex. What does it feel like for you? I mean, you're in one of the hottest fields right now, AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think for me, I'm at a startup, right? So in my career, I've worked at big companies like IBM and Salesforce, but for the last several years, I've been at startups, particularly in the AI space. And I definitely feel as though the intent for hiring diverse candidates, particularly Black candidates, for me is really high because we really want people on our teams that look like our customers because it's a relationship business at the end of the day. Like you want people who can connect with your customers. And that means you need to be able to have every type of person on your team because all of our customers are every type of person. And I say that particularly for Black people in recruitment right now, because there is like, to me, there's this dearth. When I look at who's applying to roles, like it's 99% not people who look like us. So I think that there's definitely a as I'm hiring, I see that gap. And so I have to like go to places and find the nooks and crannies. And I don't have a big organization behind me like Salesforce does or IBM does, who both, from my perspective, do really great work. I see Chantel, you got a Salesforce logo behind you. Like from my perspective, they did really great work when I was there. They had, activation groups within the company like Bold Force at Salesforce and Black at IBM. But when you're at a startup, you got to bootstrap it a little bit and you don't have those big machines behind you to help find where talent is. And that makes it harder. So for me, doing that search itself is tough, but it's definitely work that's warranted because if you don't, then you're going to miss out on, building better relationships with your clients. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Oh, I low key kind of feel like Sistas in Sales is a great organization for you to know about then.
Before you got on, I was asking, I was like, what, so hold on, how does this work exactly? Yeah.
I did that on purpose. Totally. All right. Well, let's talk about the career of sales. And one thing I did want to note when I was talking about sort of like the dearth of women of color, people of color in sales roles, for me, it's like people in Alex's role. So you're like at a management level, you're making hiring decisions. And I know you said in prior interviews, Chantel, just how as you got into sales, you would see us at the entry level. You would see us getting in the door, but it was not necessarily us who was raising through the ranks. Do you feel like that has changed as well? Are you seeing more opportunities for growth in that way? The women that are getting recruited, are they getting to the top?
That's a good question. So two answers. If they come in as entry or early mid level, it does require corporate finesse to get to the top. And I think that this is a challenge for our community because Alex and I were talking right before this podcast started.
Why y'all had a whole interview when I wasn't even here? Save it for me. All right, fine. Catch me up. What y'all talk about?
And really kind of thinking about what were you exposed to growing up? What type of career paths, are you familiar with? And that will help guide you when it's time to ask for promotions. Like if you had a parent that worked in sales, they may have done role playing with you about this when you were growing up. One time I spoke on a podcast about the language of business and how if that's not involved in your day-to-day, upbringing, it can be challenging to insert that when you need it in your 20s or your early 30s as you're looking to get up the corporate ladder. And so it's really those unspoken rules and the lack of mentorship and connections internally that can prevent you from getting to that next level, which is what we do at SIS. We do help kind of unpack that and add clarity to what you need to do, how you need to handle it, what you need to ask, have a conversations you need to have, etc. So that's one thing. Yes, that does exist, and it's happening as we speak. There's challenges moving up internally when you start low and you're trying to get high. But on the other side, if you are already senior and you're trying to go laterally or just one step up, you can also encounter issues because getting a job when you're senior to like for example, if you're a VP and you're trying to be an SVP or you're a VP and you're just trying to get in the door as a VP, that's a whole other level of networking to get in the door. There's a whole other level of how to play the game and how to present yourself. And it is another level that I think that women of color are starting to really think through with their career choices and decision making. For example, give you two examples. There are a lot of industry events that happen all over the world and all over Cannes, CES, and Dreamforce, for example, as we spoke about Salesforce. And historically, even VPs that were not on the budgets to attend would not attend if their company did not give them authorization to. Nowadays, women of color are paying out of pocket to go to these industry events so that they can make their own paths, so that they can establish and secure their future, especially as mentioned, if they're senior level looking for another senior in. And that's just required. And I think that for a while we were shy to do that. And we are no longer shy about paying our own way if what we need to do, and going to the places where we can meet the right people to help us shepherd us up the ladder, from where we are to where we need to be. So hopefully that answers your questions in two parts. There's both an internal struggle and there's an external struggle, depending on where you are in your career.
I think you explained that so well. And I am also reminded of how special and unique you each are. Alex, I've obviously watched you I think that you and I both approached our careers in similar ways, which is that we were never necessarily loyal to one employer. We got what we could get out of it, and we were not afraid necessarily. I know some of your choices were not your own to be moving on, but some of them were. And also you, Chantel, Alex, you worked at ABM and Salesforce, where else? Mule, something or other, and Fiddler, which I learned today has an E in it. And Chantel, you have worked at Yelp and LinkedIn and Salesforce, right? Am I wrong? Did I get that
Twitter.
Twitter.
Miner.
So y'all are the exceptions to this sort of glass wall, or whatever you want to call it, that we can, I believe the phrase is broken rung. So you get on the ladder, but it can be hard to move up. Mm-hmm. So can y'all each kind of tell me your career stories and how you approached and how you were able to make moves and raise through the ranks? Alex, you want to start?
Yeah, I think in sales, the first thing you have to wonder is, do you want to rise up the ranks? I think particularly in sales, and I'll explain why. So, there's an old trope in sales, sales managers typically make less money than a really great sales rep. However,
because of the commissions?
Exactly, right? Let's say you're a sales manager and you have 7 people on your team. In order for you to hit your number and actually hit your potential accelerators and the best commission you can get, all 7 people on your team need to hit their numbers, right? Or your 7 people need to accumulate enough revenue that matches your overall quota for that 7-person territory that you own, right? But if you're an individual contributor, you only have to focus on your own territory, right? It's let's say your quota is 1/7 of what your manager's is. And now if you blow it out, maybe your manager doesn't get that big bump because the other folks on your team didn't, but you will, right? And so there's this, there's certainly a lot of extremely talented sales reps who could have gone into management a long time ago, but have chosen not to because they're like, why? I don't want to just manage a spreadsheet all day and have to talk to 7 other people and do my job through those people. There's questions about that and whether it's the right thing to do in this particular job. And I don't think that is the same for other careers. I could be wrong, but I think it's unique about sales. For me, it was waiting for the right opportunity to want to be a leader and also to get that opportunity. It was they both happened at the same time. So I think as I was at IBM, I'd become a high performer there, but I felt like the ceiling was a little bit lower, candidly, because IBM is a really big company and there's always this trope, you never get fired for buying IBM. And so if you never get fired for buying IBM, then it's kind of easier to sell, right? So as you grow in your career,
it's okay.
And as you grow in your career, you kind of want to sell things that maybe they're a little bit more challenging and also more cutting edge. And so I went to a smaller company at that time, MuleSoft, which ended up being acquired by Salesforce. And I started to cut my teeth there and learn how to actually do this job at a company where not everyone knows that company's name or had a grandfather who worked at that company, right? But it still got pretty big because Salesforce was acquired them and they put their own stamp on things. So I eventually decided I wanted to go smaller because for me, I love the entrepreneurial side of things. I love being autonomous. I love building my own schedule and finding my own clients and all that kind of stuff and not necessarily feeling like a cog in the machine. So I did well at a couple of startups over the last couple of years. But when I got to Fiddler, it felt like the right time because my performance was high, but what the team needed and what the company needed at the time kind of matched where I was in my career. And not only that, they took sort of a bet on me. being younger, being someone that doesn't look like every head of sales, they did, promote me to that role and gave me a chance to deliver there. And we're doing pretty good so far. So I'm really appreciative for the opportunity, but it also kind of met me at a time in my life where I was performing high enough to try it because it was a new challenge. And also I knew the company well. I believed in the leadership. It's a great culture. I felt like if I was going to take this leap, this would be the place to do it.
For someone who's mid-level, early career, who may be super intimidated by speaking and like presenting yourself and getting to know the higher ups, who may decide that they're worth taking a bet on, how did you build rapport with them? And if you have any advice for
Yeah.
people who may feel a little bit intimidated by that.
I think as long as you as long as you deliver and exceed what it is that's set out in front of you, it becomes a lot easier, right? So if I was underperforming or if I was like just meeting performance, then it'd be harder for me to feel very confident walking into a room where I'm talking to somebody who's a CEO or one of our board members or something like that. But if I know that I'm coming in as a high performer, and that's my floor. My floor is high performer, right? So no matter what happens in this meeting, no matter if they give me a promotion or tell me to, kick rocks or whatever, I'll just go back to being a high performer. I think it like gives me a little bit more confidence to just try it and take that risk and take that leap and say, hey, here's what I would do if given this opportunity. Here's my plan. I've never done it before, but I think this plan feels sound, and I'm basing it off of things I've seen before. And let's, what's the alternative? The alternative is taking this path. And do you think this path would be more lucrative for us? I would say no. So this is why I'm presenting this plan. But again, I had the confidence to do that because I felt very solid in my belief in myself. The culture of my company is a really great one where like they reward internal folks or folks internally who are performing really well. So I kind of just felt like this is I had no reason not to be confident going into those rooms because ultimately the worst that could happen is I just go back to what was already working for me.
So it sounds like just be really freaking good at selling. That can help.
Well,
Be like good at your job.
I've been doing it for 10 years.
I
So
ask the hard-hitting questions.
you get better at it over time if you're really
Yeah.
doubling and learning and like you listen to your mentors and you grow in your role and grow in your profession and your discipline, like you get better eventually. And like
Hmm.
when you start to hit those milestones for yourself, yeah, you've earned the right to be confident. So don't take that away from yourself.
Hmm.
I agree with that.
John?
I just want to say I agree. That's actually one of the best things about working in sales. Like the better you are, the easier it is to navigate internally, the easier it is to gain visibility. Obviously, the more money you make. And I just think it makes you a better conversationalist. So even outside of work, you communicate more effectively, you communicate with confidence. We're selling most of the time just with our voice. I mean, at least back in the day when I first started sales, I was a telesales person. I sold with my voice. So my voice became my instrument. And the way that I talk and the way that I listen and the way that I construct sentences was how it was my superpower. But I definitely want to chime in to Alex's point. Another tip would be leveraging your first 90 days. Like if you're new, you can get away with a lot of things. You can go to the top performer and say, I just want to listen to your calls and see how you do things. That's when
You're not a threat yet.
that was a perfect time for me. I soaked up and made a lot of connections because people remember what it's like to be new, and you can just get away with being the curious person and no one is going to tell you no. You run into someone in the elevator, you don't even know who that person is. They could be on the board, they could be the COO, CFO, whatever. And you introduce yourself because you're new. And funnily enough, you actually can use that even in a sales call. For example, if you're working in like an account management role and you're taking over accounts, that's also a really great time to add your own, I guess, flavor, but also a great time to get information out of people because you're new. And so I just took over this account. I don't know much about what's going other than what Sally told me. I would love to learn everything. Let's start from the beginning. Also, why aren't you signing this contract? I'm just curious. I'm new. So, it's a lot of things that you get with being new that we should be taking advantage of. I've seen white counterparts really take advantage of the new card.
Hmm. Okay. Now,
Yeah,
what are y'all?
completely agree. It's like the best thing to do is just play dumb in sales. You learn so much when you just play dumb. In fact,
You
that's
are
why I
good at
love
that,
technical.
Alex.
I know, I was about to say, I know you're joking, but I was about to
No, I'm
say,
not, but you've told me that before, and
yeah,
I've seen you do it. So I think it
yeah.
is a skill.
When you're in tech sales and you're not technical, I did not go to school for technology. I did not grow up tech as a technologist, but I have a
Mhm.
curiosity about technology and I have, I think, good common sense. So if I just go in and ask reasonable human questions, not technical questions, I'll learn really important technical things and I can write those things down and I can tell someone smarter than me who will be like, oh, here's how we should interpret that. And then we go back to the customer and provide a proposal that meets what they, not only what they want, but also, what they really got to have right now. So I think playing dumb and learning from your customers as opposed to like walking in and thinking you need to like present them with the perfect, elevator pitch every first call. I think that that gets you a lot further.
Agreed. And people like to know that you are approaching their business with humility. Um, it makes them feel comfortable.
And trusting them that they know what their biggest issues are and what problems they need solved a
Yeah.
little bit. And then kind of like
And it's
giving
also
them
about,
the,
oh, sorry, Mandy, go ahead.
just gonna say, giving them the reassurance that you're listening to them and you care about what they're going through and like you're gonna find the best fit if you can for them through your product.
Yeah, that's consultative selling is like reassuring, learning from them, reassuring them. And, yeah, it's the best way to
Mm.
own the fact that you're young in sales or you're black in sales and you may not be like everyone else that you're talking to is to kind of just own it and ask questions and not try to go in. Let's say I'm younger. I'm half the age of the person I'm trying to sell to, and they've been working in AI since before I was born, right? I can't go in there and try to pretend like I know AI better than them or try to like surprise them with a interesting fact. Like I'm not going to do it. It's very unlikely that I'm going to be able to shock this person with my AI knowledge. I won't. So instead, why don't I just be like a really, be myself, be a good person to them, ask them questions, tell them that I'm their conduit to whatever it is that their challenge and solution that they have in mind is. That gets me a lot further than trying to go in and assume that like I have to present some, killer fact,
And
right? But then by the time I learn all those things, now I do probably know toward the later stages of the sales cycle what it is that's going to make this person really successful. And then that's when you pitch.
I wanted to add to what you said, Alex, in because it sounds like we're talking about like the discovery, get to know you phase. There are also some technical things that you can bring in from a communication standpoint, like mirroring. So pretty much repeating back what the prospect said so they feel like you're hearing them. Similarly to when someone says their name and you say their name back to them. So that really helps. And then obviously like framing questions with empathy. So for example, if, like you said, you can't shock them with an AI fact, but you can use something about AI to empathize with them. Seems like there's a lot going on in the world of AI in your world. That must be overwhelming. Can you tell me about how you feel about this particular thing or what, that must be overwhelming or that must be a lot to handle or that must be a lot on your plate. So creating those empathetic connections and then, there's so many communication tips and tricks that you can use into how you talk to people that can give you so much information and really allow you to be that detective in that conversation. And I think another misconception about sales is mostly listening. It's really like getting information and trying to understand what is this person dealing with? What is their problem? Do they even know their problem? And then how can you help guide them towards your solution? So, yeah, I love what you said, Alex. Just wanted to add some of those technical pieces there.
And what you said earlier about how you can use some of these things in your regular life, like what you're talking about, just listen or repeat back to people what they've said to you. That is really helpful in sales, and it's also great in my personal life because a lot of times you misunderstand things, especially when you're in sales. At the end of the day, I am selling something, right? So if I sell this thing, I make money. So that means in my head, I want to sell this thing. And so if I go into the call thinking like that, which I typically do, everything sounds like something I should try to pounce on to sell the thing I want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to relax yourself and ask questions, because if you do that and you start to like say, well, hey, did you just say this? Or am I understanding correctly that this? Now you might find out that the thing that you were about to pounce on is actually a red herring. It actually isn't something you should have pounced on. And if you did, you would have come off looking, too salesy or not listening to the person, or, having a misconception. And that also is very true in regular life, where you're talking to your partner or you're talking to a parent or family member. And if they say one thing that really like triggers you and you want to be upset, maybe it's better to just like, hey, what, hold on. Are you saying this or did you mean that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you end up finding out that the thing that they were even, indicating is not what you were thought it was. So, yeah, all of those things, I think they matter both professionally and personally. And I definitely learned that in sales.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, having never triggered you in my entire life, I don't exactly know what you mean, but I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah, we can just
All right.
pretend.
No, we just pretend. I want to talk about money, honey, because I think, Chantel, one of the things that we talked about at Afrotech was sort of like just the conversation around compensation. And I have seen Alex, celebrate them big wins, those big paychecks, honey. We love that. But you are you're basically a solopreneur when you're in sales. You are kind of like running your own little business. And I relate to that now, being a full-time solopreneur. The ebbs and flows of that income can be challenging. So can y'all talk about how you've learned to navigate your personal finances while pursuing this career path? I know, Chantel, now you are full-time with Sistas in sales, but still, any advice on how to handle
Yes.
your money?
We actually just had an event about this yesterday with Gusto. The VP of compensation was on the line. And so first, I think it's most important to understand what actually is your compensation. I know sales can be tricky, and some companies make it actually trickier on purpose. But there are a lot of variables to consider when looking at a compensation plan. Your percentage to quota, accelerated, we talked about, your equity that's available to you depending on the kind of company you're working for, paid time off, vesting schedule, so many things. And so it can help to know what exactly are you getting paid for holistically outside of your base salary. Also, how is it broken up? And which one of these things are going to impact your personal life, short term, medium, or long term? For example, when I worked for LinkedIn, I was getting Microsoft stock. That's a long term financial planning facet of my portfolio. That's nothing to do with what I'm getting paid every 2 weeks. Also, depending on how frequently you get paid your commission can also determine your short-term, medium, and long-term goals. I went from getting commission monthly in some jobs to quarterly to annually. And I think that depending on your personal lifestyle, you should pick roles that obviously match up with how you like to get paid and what makes sense for you. And then I think, taking a step back, some of this can be also negotiated at the offer stage. So, for example, I've had colleagues that have negotiated parking, free parking, all kinds of perks and things that are actually have cash value, that you can negotiate and get under control. And I think lastly would be the way that we spend our money is something that you really become very aware of working in sales. Our jobs are very stressful. Some of us splurge a lot in our careers working in sales because we're waiting for so long to get this commission. And we've already made this wish list of things in our mind we're going to buy with it because that's what keeps us motivated day after day after day. And so it's really important to have a financial advisor that can kind of bring you back to earth when you finally get this crazy commission check. These commission checks can be 6 figures, lump sum, just landing in your bank account. And so even though you have all this time to kind of think about all the things you're going to buy, between those commission check bumps, you should also be talking with a financial advisor about what you're going to invest in and how you're going to do those things. And so there were financial advisors that used to be passed around at the companies I worked at that different salespeople would trust. And so that was a huge benefit. So there's a few things, right? It's the offer, just to recap the offer. It's about understanding your compensation structure and if it works for you on a personal level. And then it's about really monitoring your own spending habits because we get paid in such a lumpy way. And some, depending if we don't hit quota, we don't get paid at all. So mind over matter when it comes to what to do when that money hits your account.
Yeah, and I'll say from my perspective, I'll speak specifically to people who have base salary plus variable compensation jobs, otherwise known as OTE, on target earnings. So this means you work at a company, they pay you a base salary, and then you have a variable that is also contractually obligated or is contractually, stated in your contract. If you hit your number to the number, you hit exactly your number, you will be paid this much in a variable bonus, right, throughout the year. So to those people, let's say your base salary is 100K and your variable is 100K. So you have a 200K on target earnings. That does not mean you will make 200K that year. That means that if you hit your quota exactly, you will make 200K. If you miss your quota by half, you'll make 150K. If you miss your quota by 75%, you'll make 125K. Hopefully that makes sense. My philosophy is to live on my base and play on my commissions, right? Like that's kind of how I think about it. I like to live below my means because even if I'm having a great year, I'm killing it in sales. Whenever those big commission checks come in, they sit in my checking account for less than 24 hours. I got to get it out of there. Like I put it immediately into like a high yield savings account. And then when it's in there and it's safe and it feels like harder to access, then I start thinking about what to do with it. Okay, do I want to put it in Roth, or do I want to go and like make this investment in a home, or do I want to go on a vacation with this much and then I want to go on and do this with that much? Like
Do
put
you
it
have a
somewhere
planner
you
though?
can't. A financial planner?
Yeah. Have you had a planner
No,
before?
no, I haven't.
Yeah. I remember talking to you when you got like, maybe one of your first big commissions at IBM, and I was like, wait, what? It's a lot of money. And I was like, I just wasn't aware that was what it was like. And, we were talking about 401ks and stuff. And like, then you bought your condo. So, I mean, I think that you made some savvy choices, Alex, with your money. And what were you using as your source of like knowledge there? Was it just like going off of what other folks were doing? Were you reading books? Were you listening to your big sister?
Well, I definitely was listening to you with respect. I never knew what a high yield savings account was. And I feel like that a high yield savings account is definitely the secret for me. I'm not saying this works for everybody. The reason it works for me is because if the money is sitting in my checking account, it will feel like mine and I will want to do things with it. When it goes into somewhere else where I have less access to it, or maybe it takes a couple of days for it to get back to me, it feels more strategic. Now I'm like, okay, what do I want to do with it? And while it's over there, by the way, it's making, it's making me money. It's earning me 3 to 5% interest, depending on what the rates are at the time. So like to me, that's what my little secret weapon is, because once it's there, I can start to be strategic and I can start to think about what it is I want to do. So at the time, like you mentioned, I bought a condo. I needed a place to live, and it felt like a good idea to buy as opposed to rent. That's a good time to go into my high yield savings account, pull out a deposit, and buy that condo, right? And then when I decided I wanted to build my house, I had built up enough money in my high yield savings account to get me through that initial deposit for building the house. And then luckily I had a really good year sales wise and I was able to get through that build. Like but all of that wouldn't have been possible if I had just like, left that money in my checking, went and bought a car, did whatever the crazy thing I wanted to do at the time. But I needed to like put it somewhere else so I could look at it and like get strategic about what makes sense for me right now. I think at some point I definitely will get a financial planner, but at this time in my life, I don't have any kids. I am doing, quite well for myself, and I have some unusual things I do splurge on, like making movies. I don't really want to talk to a financial planner about making movies. It's like there's nothing financially advisable about what
That's
I'm doing with
true.
my
Are you
filmmaking.
investing?
So
Do you invest now, or
I
is it just okay? You do.
I
Okay.
put some things in stocks. I put some things in index funds like you taught me some years ago. But like a lot of my money goes into making films, and that is not financially advisable. I don't want to have to explain that to somebody. Maybe that's
Hmm.
short-sighted of me, and I should get one. But for now, it's been
Oh,
going pretty
well,
well without having a financial planner, and I'm kind of like, let me get to a point where maybe I have more complications in my life. Like I have children, for instance, or I need to like think about a different type of property I want to own, like things that aren't as straightforward.
that's a fair point. I mean, I think that makes sense. I also feel like with financial planners, they certainly, I think it's so smart, Chantel, to give that tip because with a big windfall, they can help you like save yourself from yourself. And those periods in my life where I have also gotten windfalls, I mean, in different ways, yeah, for me, I guess, Alex, you have like a much stronger mind for creating like mental barriers with your money. And like for me, a high yield savings account isn't enough. I need it to be like locked up in a vault,
In the
especially now
bank,
that I'm a
vault
mom.
somewhere.
Especially now that I'm a mom, like I tell you, Hot Wheels, like I need to buy stock in whatever company owns them because like, baby, it is so expensive keeping my son in in with the latest wheels. And yeah, so anyway, financial planners are great. I know that BA fam has, knows where to find them. National Association of Personal Financial Planners, XY Planning we talked about. I like Chantel, you said like you just learned from your colleagues, like who are you using?
Can I
Um,
add something real quick? I forgot. So one place I definitely learned a lot was when I joined IBM, and I'm guessing this is at a lot of big companies. They had this program called Money Smart, I think it was what it was called. But basically, it was like a somebody within IBM or like like a third party that they contracted that was there to advise IBMers on how to set up their 401k, which one to pick, what's their risk profile, what year they wanted it to go until, things I still fully don't understand. But like that at that time, I probably knew more than I do now because I was able to call that person. You set a meeting with them anytime. They were like helping me navigate what types of retirement accounts were important for me. So I believe Salesforce had this as well when I was there, but I can't say for sure. But I don't think IBM is the only company that has this. So if you do work at a company that's, large, maybe look into that too, because there's folks within that company that are like, if they're providing you a 401k, they want to see you, leveraging that to your success.
Good point. Chantel, can you tell us about Sisters in Sales? I want to give you a moment to just talk about the journey that you've been on these past 8 years and and
Um,
what that has been like. How are you? How is Sisters in
oh,
Sales?
I'm doing okay. I think it's been the journey of entrepreneurship. I was a sidepreneur for the first 6 years.
Mm.
Building this while I was working as a sales professional, I realized that I didn't have any mentors or connections in the industry. And I just felt like, taking myself back, I just didn't feel like the work that I was doing was sales. Like it was supporting me. Obviously, cold calling, cold emailing, appointments, pitching, closing. These were all things that were important. But when I would look at other professionals who had a sales background, their jobs seemed much more interesting and cooler and unique. And I just felt like the road I was on wasn't leading me there. And much more, their jobs seemed much more strategic, much more much more, I suppose, important to the company because we're doing enterprise deals. And so I made it my mission to understand the evolution of a sales professional, but specifically in tandem and in partnership with women that look like me. And so I would have these interviews with these women and I would write their stories and they would tell me about all of the things that they're doing and the private jets and the salaries and the lifestyle. And I was like, I don't think that I'm on the path to get there. So we got to start this from the beginning. So, I love that I'm getting good at the job. How do I play the game? And so that was really the biggest pivot. And so our first public event actually was at Salesforce. They were our first corporate partner. And they opened up the doors for us at the New York City Tower. And they allowed us to have our first event. And this was the first time that New York City saleswomen of color were able to meet each other. We didn't have a website. We didn't have, I didn't have a business card. But one of the AVP there Amy Frank, I'll never forget her because we honored her at our gala last year. The year before. She was our sponsor. And it wasn't monetary. It was just, here's some space to do your event. Don't mess anything up. And I was like, fine. And it was life-changing. People that had been in sales for 20 years, 2 years, that didn't have connections, that were able to make valuable connections and answer important questions that were on everyone's mind. So I feel very thankful of the journey, from that event now to 20,000 globally and a thriving virtual community.
20,000? Let me update my notes. I had 12. That's outdated intel.
That's incredible. I didn't 20,000. That's amazing.
Yes. And we have an amazing team. And we are literally all over the world. We're in Denver next week and in New York and in London and just so many events and so much support and so much visibility and transparency. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to go into your job and work in sales and not know anything anymore. You can ping someone in our app and get connected to someone who can answer your questions. And if you don't have any job prospects, come to our events. They are looking for you. So that's what we're solving for. It is invigorating. It brings me joy. It makes me bright. And I'm super excited to be doing this work.
One of the things
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what about for entry level? Do you have programs or anything that you do specifically for people trying to get into sales for the first time?
We have a whole program. It's called Aspiring Sellers for people looking to get into sales for the first time. So yes, we have an annual event called Aspiring Sellers. We have coaching and training for aspiring sellers. They are a part of our community. Definitely.
That's great. I hear people all the time asking me, how do I get into sales? And I only know the way I did it, which was go to a big company and be one of, 10, 15,000 salespeople or so. And I did learn a lot there, but that's really awesome to start pointing people towards you.
Thank you.
Business model wise, you're not you do so much good for us, right? For people of color, but you're not a nonprofit. And I want to point that out, right? Am I wrong? You're a for-profit.
No, you're
membership. People pay a membership fee. I want to acknowledge that because I do feel like there is, especially women of color, we tend to think when my business is going to do good, some kind of community good or, help in some way, that it needs to be a nonprofit for some reason. And then you're chasing grant money and those types of funding sources. What was the decision behind that, and how has that been? How have you been finding it, taking that approach?
I did what I'm good at, which is closing contracts. And so I am not a nonprofit guru. I never even considered it at the beginning. I knew that if I had a great product and great connections, I could walk in and I could make business happen. And it's easier for me. And we're faster because we don't have those types of restrictions and hurdles. And because we're faster, we are able to serve our customers. And when I say that in this case, I'm talking about the B2B corporate partners and sponsors, in inventive ways. And so we have a board. We have an advisory board with excellent saleswomen, and they support us and they give us direction and they give us ideas. But this is a structure that works for us.
Wonderful. So how close are you to that private jet? How's that going?
I know. Hopefully soon.
What sorts of secrets have y'all unlocked in terms of, I know Chantel, I think it's so relatable, that idea that you're looking at other people and you're like, what am I missing? How do I get on that conveyor belt over there?
Mm-hmm.
What was it that you found you were missing? Was it just connections? Does everyone need to go find a Sistas in sales to then make the context that they need to succeed?
Everything. Number one, even as an entrepreneur, connection brought capital to me. Everything professional services, legal, marketing, connections are so, so important. And sometimes as a sales professional, join an organization. Hopefully join mine if you're interested. but join any organization because it's curated connections. You don't even have to go out and seek these people cold. They're curated, delivered to you on a stick. Here you go. But as an entrepreneur, connections are so important because there's so many situations that you're going to get yourself in, so many challenges you're going to get yourself in. You need to know people who know what to do, who know who to call, who know how to help you, who know how to support you. That is completely uncharted territory. There are similarly organizations for entrepreneurs too, of course. But I think that, for both sides of the coin, you have to know people. You just have to. It's a requirement for you to get through the ebbs and flows of life. So hopefully people get out of their shell if they're shy or introverted, and you don't have to go to everything every time, but you should have an organization, in the back burner that you can tap into.
I love that. Alex, are you part of any sales organization? Speak for the men's. What y'all doing out there?
No, I'm not, and I want to learn more about them.
Yeah.
Sistas in Sales is the first time I've heard of anything like this before. And I'm like, now that I'm learning about it, I'm like, I'm sure there's something like this for guys or something like this for Black people in general, or something like this for people in AI or what, so I need to look into that because especially as someone hiring, having a place to just reach out and ask like, hey, is anyone looking? Is anyone interested? Here's the rec. That would be awesome. So yeah, I need to look into this for sure.
Yeah. And one quick question for you, Chantel, on that is with this whole mission from the current administration to do away with woke policies and DEI, have you seen that impacting your business yet? Or are you still getting the same interest from corporations who recognize the value in a diverse sales force?
People still recognize the value. They of course are doing their due diligence as they should with anything. Whether or not they are for or against the administration, they have to, as a business, do their due diligence in organizations. But we're pushing forward. Our theme for this year is called Redefine Your Revenue. Revenue and income can come from multiple things. One is a 9-to-5. The other is your independent work. We are encouraging our sales professionals to be consultants, to be fractional sales leaders, to not wait for a large brand to take interest in you all the time. But you may have something to offer an entrepreneur who's looking for their first sales hire, or a company that is looking to create structure and, bring on a bunch of people. You have skills that you've learned from these companies. It's time to monetize them. So that's what our whole year is about. That's what our summit in September is going to be really double tapping on. So one way or the other, we believe that our community will thrive.
Yeah, how to leverage your skills in sales to then become a consultant and bring in an independent source of income. Do you find in contracts that you sign with companies, do they often prohibit outside work like that?
No, very future forward companies actually are very encouraged. They encourage that because they know it's going to happen anyways, and they'd rather maintain their talent. And it's as simple as signing a moonlighting form to let them know that you will be doing any additional work. And the studies have shown, there's a Forbes article out that talks about if you give your employee the opportunity to be entrepreneurial, they will be more likely to stick around. And everyone knows it's expensive to hire people. So you don't want to leave them just because you told them they can't do a side gig.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much logical sense. And yet, I've heard lots of situations where sometimes it's the leadership. They're like a little too mature to, just get emotional about it when they find out an employee is sharing their talents outside. But that's great to hear. I'm glad. That's such a great focus for the year.
Yes.
All right. BA fam, I really want y'all to check out Sistas in Sales. And I just feel like, Chantel, I think your approach is so thoughtful and so well-rounded, and you truly care. And I just see the incredible work that Sistas in Sales is doing. And I know that everyone who comes through my coaching community and is interested in getting into sales, I'm like, go check out Chantel. Go check out Chantel. I did that recently with a Mandi Moneymaker, and she was nervous. She's like, right now she's selling for a furniture store. And she I think she feels intimidated, as if joining. And I'm like, but that's the point of Sistas in Sales, is it's not you're supposed to feel safe. Go.
Exactly.
And I saw that you even offer, what do you call it? So like if you can't afford the price for one of your events, you can apply to have like a scholarship or something? Yeah, love that. Lovely. Well, all right, Chantel George of Sistas in Sales, Alex Woodruff. What's your title? Head of Sales, Fiddler AI. There it is for me. Thank y'all so much for joining and, teaching me a lot about the career path in sales and what's happening in today's marketplace. Is there anything y'all want to say before I let you go? Anything on your minds? Anything I left out?
Thank you for the opportunity. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up twice.
Okay.
And chatting with me anyway.
No worries.
Think I covered everything. Hopefully we did. But thank you. Thanks a lot, Mandi. This is awesome.
Thank you, Mandi.
Love you, Alex. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother. Chantel, thank you.